After losing my memory, I forgot the fact that I was already married to my child. Seeing him in the same hospital gown, I tried to remain. Just as I was about to speak, his gaze suddenly turned dark and somber. You don't have to do, he said. Once you've made up your mind, I'll go with you to get the divorce. There was even a trace of grievance in his cold and distant voice. I stared blankly at his face, completely clueless of what's going on here. I'm not even married. Where would a divorce come from? My confused gaze slowly shifted downward, only to see a ring on Zhang Roshi. I grabbed her wrist impulsively. Seeing her body visibly tense, she stayed perfect. You're married? I'm sorry, the woman blurted out. She quickly took off the ring, fumbling in panic. Without any pockets? She clutched the ring tightly in her palm, as if afraid someone. I didn't mean to. I won't wear it again. Don't be mad, she added nervously. Before I could react, a nurse suddenly running around right after waking up. Don't you? And how could you just pull out the IV like that? That's so irresponsible. Your hands still. Let me take a look. Her gaze, but she mechanically raised her hand to the nurse. One drop of blood, and you act like the world. The nurse grumbled, impatiently All right, we'll redo the IV later. You two are such an odd couple. Most people wake up from a car crash, but you two just stare at each other. I awkwardly smiled and explained, we're not a couple. You've misunderstood. You've got the story wrong. She smiled and shook. Not a couple? I heard from the traffic police it was your wife who shielded you at the moment of the car. You only have a minor but she has over a dozen shards of glass deeply you can't be heartless as her husband. I froze instantly, a wave of panic surging in my. So, I was in the car accident with Zhang Roshi? No, that's not right. I was driving alone. When did Zhang Roshi get in the car? And even protect me? Was it really necessary to at least for now, we're still technically married. The sadness in her soft tone clashed sharply with her cold and it was such a mismatch. Oh God. I was clearly on my way to my graduation when the accident. How did Zhang Roshi suddenly become my wife? And now we're about to get a divorce. I had originally planned to confess to Zhang Roshi on graduation day. I've liked Zhang Roshi since I was a child, but she's always been cold and distant like an emotionless robot. This confession was something I had mustered great courage. I remember texting her last night, asking her to bring a bouquet to my graduation ceremony because I had something important to tell. But when I opened my eyes, I was lying and I couldn't find my phone. The nurse said she couldn't reach my parents either. I truly didn't know what to do. Then Zhang Roshi barged in, acting as if I had abandoned her. Hey, Zhang Roshi, are you sure you're not messing with me? You're not this kind of person. You're than our elementary school math teacher. I touched my forehead, wondering if I'd gone crazy or if Zhang Roshi had lost it. You really don't need to do that. I promised you and I won't break my word. The divorce papers are already written. I'll get you a copy later, signed and ready for you. My mind felt like a complete mess. This mismatch of information. My first thought was the typical trope of amnesia. Amnesia Zhang Roshi. What if I told you I have amnesia? The moment I said it, her fingers visibly trembled. Her eyes flashed with an almost despairing sadness and a fleeting glimmer of hope. Then she forced a bitter smile. My phone's broken. I need to borrow yours. I want to call my parents. Zhang Roshi suddenly looked up, her gaze fixed on me like a laser. Ever since my parents died in a car accident 3 years, it's been my deepest pain. For 3 years, I've never. You said today was graduation day. Her tone carried a suffocating pressure. I nodded. Then I rolled my eyes at her. You didn't bring roses. I knew it. You really don't like me anymore, do you? If you really dislike me, I don't. I like you. I like you very, very much. We're married. He spoke each word earnest and insistent, almost desperately. Then he smiled, but as he smiled, tears began to fall, one after another. Don't cry. I think I might really have amnesia. I don't even know what's going on. Why are we getting divorced? Did I do something to hurt you? Can we maybe not get divorced yet? Zhang Roshi slowly sat down on a nearby chair, gently pulling my hand toward. Touch me? She said softly, her voice breaking as she. Please touch me. I'm so tired, she muttered over and over again. It felt like she was pouring out an endless. Hearing her words, my heart felt as if this is the woman I've loved since I've never seen her so fragile. How could I possibly remain if a car accident has made confessing unnecessary and I've ended up directly marrying Zhang? What's there to divorce? How could I possibly want a divorce unless one of us cheated? I didn't, the woman instantly retorted, her eyes filled with disbelief, yet firm determination. I've only ever loved you in this life. I would never ever cheat, nor even glance at another man. If you find out I'm unfaithful, don't say a word. I'd end my own life myself. I opened my mouth but couldn't make a sound. If Zhang Roshi didn't cheat, does that mean I fell for someone else? No, I shook my head vigorously, trying to banish the absurd from my mind. That's impossible. How could there be anyone better than Zhang Ruo? Where in the world would I find? So when can we go home? Do we have a home of our own? The woman nodded firmly, reaching out cautiously to touch my head, silently telling herself it would just be one, nothing more. But now her world included me once again. I'll go ask the doc if there's nothing serious. We'll to our home. I nodded, feeling a tiny red flower of joy bloom in my heart. As soon as she left the room, I excitedly rolled around on the bed twice. Oh my God, I really married Zhang Roshi. As Zhang Roshi expected, the doctor told her that my brain had suffered a severe resulting in a blood clot, pressing against certain memory, causing the amnesia. The hippocampus was damaged, which significantly affected my recent memory, all thanks to Zhang Roshi's protection. I didn't suffer any serious. Instead, the doctor recommended hospitalization, but he refused. For the first time in 3 years, I expressed my desire to go, so I didn't want to stay at the hospital even for a I was desperate to go home. Assistant Li Yukai rushed over, but still got scolded by Zhang. He followed the woman innocently into the ward, politely greeting Mr. Mu, hello. I'm here to take you and President Zhang home. I opened my mouth and looked blankly toward the woman. Hurriedly explained, my assistant, Li Yu. If you need something, just tell me. Li Yukai. His hand, which was packing up, he turned back, looked at Zhang Roshi with confusion, a little worried. President, what is if he says such not, will the young master scold him? But my reaction shocked him even more. Hello, Li Yukai. I'm Mu Gay. I don't know if we've met before. Anyway, just act like you know. I thought for a moment and quickly explained. This morning, we were in a car accident. You know that, right? And I seem to have lost my memory. I don't remember you. Sorry, don't. Li Yukai stepped back, tightly holding the exit. Please don't. I can't handle it. Apologies are unnecessary. In his memory, I apologize only in the first year, in the second year, Jiang Corporation, in the third year, Zhang Roshi had a car. Such things are fine for Zhang Roshi. She's the president and can handle it. But for a small assistant like me, who only earns a salary, I don't want to be cursed. A small assistant like just earning a salary to get doesn't want to be cursed. Living a good life is his ultimate goal. Along the way, I was very curious about the outside world. Although it's only been 3 years, many familiar stores have closed down, and quite a few office buildings have appeared nearby. In my eyes, it seemed everything just suddenly popped up. All things seemed to rise so abruptly. Li Yukai had informed the butler in advance, so when we arrived home, the servants didn't say much. They just took the items and left. After I slowly walked forward, I saw a glass cabinet on the side holding my favorite collection of items. Everything was arranged according to my. It was evident that Zhang Roshi put a lot of thought. I wondered if there was anything Frowning, I slowly turned around. Staring up and down at the woman behind, I asked, do we have a marriage? Zhang Roshi didn't understand why I asked. A bit uneasy, she nodded. She took out a white box from a bloodstain. Opening the box, inside were 2 red. She opened one and showed it to me. We're really married. I wouldn't lie to you. Tilting my head, the agreement was stained, but the 2 marriage certificates were well preserved. The person on it was indeed, but I didn't look happy. Marrying Zhang Roshi should be something very joyful, and I was about to take a closer look, but Zhang Roshi quickly took it back. I'll keep it, don't touch it. Her cautiousness and her made me suspicious, but luckily, the me from 3 years ago was simple. Such things could be forgotten. At this moment, Zhang Roshi took me to the bath. Such things can easily be forgotten. At this moment, Zhang Roshi took me to the bathroom. Take a shower. I'll be right outside. If you need anything, just call me. All right, I responded promptly, but I still felt a bit awkward. In my memory, my relationship hadn't progressed this far yet. Yet suddenly, we were in the same house, saying such ambiguous things. I looked at myself in the mirror. Not bad looking. Definitely a handsome guy. If we've been married for 3 years, then we must have been intimate. I wonder what Zhang Roshi's figure is like. She does seem to have quite a figure. The more I thought, the more I quickly splashed cold water on my face twice, took a comfortable shower. Wrapped in a bathrobe, I walked out. I looked up and saw Zhang Roshi on the balcony. You're out. She quickly came over and seated me at her dressing table. Blowing my hair? Did you always blow my hair like this before? Zhang Roshi, you're so gentle. I feel like you've changed a lot compared to before. Have I? The woman stood behind, looking at my reflection with deep. He's back. Great, I can finally love him openly. I turned around and immediately noticed something. When I first entered the bedroom, there was only one. Now there were 2. I silently observed the woman in the bath. She was taking quite a long time showering. This only made me, already exhausted, unable to resist. I walked to the bathroom door, raised my hand and knocked gently. Jiang Roshi, are you done? The next second, the door was pulled open. The woman, sounding a bit flustered, asked, "What? Are you uncomfortable? It's getting late. Shouldn't we go to bed?" I scratched the back of my fair face tinged with a faint blush. Jiang Roshi noticed my gaze. She quickly covered her front with her hands, awkwardly explaining, Sorry to keep you waiting. I'll go get dressed now." I smiled faintly, turned around, and dove straight into the blanket covered half my face, leaving only my large eyes visible. I listened to the woman's every move. Jiang Roshi changed into a black lace nightgown, turned off the lights outside, poured a cup of 50-degree water into my and plugged my phone into the charger. Only then did she turn and get into. On the surface, everything seemed calm, as if it had always been this way. But only Jiang Roshi knew. She could hear her own heartbeat. She could feel the cold sweat in her palm. I clutched the corner of the blanket. Even though the person lying beside me was my law, I still felt a bit awkward. But amidst the awkwardness, there was a hint of it. The woman tentatively stretched her arm out toward me. "What are you doing?" I stared at her, puzzled. "Letting you lie down. You used to sleep on my arm. Without my arm, you'd have nightmares." "Is that so?" I suddenly understood. No wonder it felt awkward. Maybe it's just the wrong position. Happily, I moved closer. Her body felt soft. At this distance, I could only place my hand on her waist, but touching it wasn't. The sensation was absolutely incredible. The soft and smooth skin. How could I possibly sleep? It made me want to make a move. I was screaming internally, but I had to suppress my impulses. I didn't want to scare her. The woman, however, froze completely. She even stopped breathing for a moment. In the past, she had noticed I liked women with good figures, so she worked out to get this spot. She thought it would make me look at her more. And I did look, but after looking, she sneered and said, "So disgusting." "Still disgusting? Like this?" Disgust. The woman's voice squeezed out from her throat, trembling. It sounded pitiful. Maybe it was just an exhausting day. Within minutes, I was fast asleep. The woman stared at me unblinkingly, as if holding back countless unspoken sorrow and longings. Some deeply buried desire burned within her soul. She didn't want to sleep. She just wanted to keep staring at me, even if just for one more minute. That alone would satisfy her. Until dawn began to break, her eyes felt unbearably sore. She thought of resting her, but when she opened them again, 2 hours had already passed. Jiang Roshi felt drained. Instinctively, she turned, but the person was no longer there. She sat up abruptly. A sharp pain in her stomach made her curl up instinctively. Her body racked with violent coughs. Her body trembled uncontrollably. In her panic-stricken eyes, there was a new, inescapable despair. "You'll leave anyway. You're still going to leave. No matter how much I beg you. Like a dog wagging its tail in submission, you'll still abandon me. Even if I die, you wouldn't look back at me. I was wrong. I regret it so much." The woman forced a twisted smile, tears streaming down like pearls on a string. Like a soulless body, she walked downstairs. In one of the display cabinets were all my favorite things. She had painstakingly collected them from around the. One of the items was a collection of daggers. Jiang Roshi opened the cabinet, took one out, and turned to look around. This house, where she had lived with me was filled with traces of me. A single tear gently slid down the woman's arm. She smiled faintly. "Wife?" I rushed towards her from behind like a gust of wind, hooking my arm around her neck. Behind us, there was a garden. It was full of roses, big and beautiful. So stunning. My voice couldn't hide my After speaking, I noticed Jiang Roshi seemed off. I slowly loosened my grip, looking at her sharp gaze, and the dagger in her hand. A chill ran down my spine. I stepped back repeatedly. A trace of panic flashed in her eyes, but she quickly calmed down. "I was just planning to peel an apple for you." "Oh, that scared me. I don't like apples." "Come, let's look at the peach." I immediately perked up, my voice grabbing her wrist and running to the backyard. Jiang Roshi's thoughts finally returned, and she let out a deep breath of relief. She suddenly remembered how I had rushed towards her just now. She followed up with a question. "What did you—" I turned back. My expression instantly "What? We're already married. Calling you wife isn't too much, is it? I just think not taking advantage would be foolish." "Wife, how about that?" "Husband, that's what you used to call me too. It's the right way to call me." Her tone was filled with happiness. She couldn't resist adding, "Baby, do you like roses?" In my memory, Jiang Roshi never called me by my name since she always gave me nicknames, like Little Banana. Calling me husband or baby now felt like something out of a movie, but it didn't matter. After all, she's the one I love. She's going to be my wife. So this just happened a little faster than expected. At this moment, my heart felt even more fiery than the roses. I like them. Every flower in this rose garden was personally planted by Jiang Roshi. She owed me a bouquet back then, so she wanted to plant an entire garden. But since I moved in, I only glanced at it coldly and never returned to the backyard. Jung Roshi knew I was upset with her impulse. Half an hour later, I sat on the living room sofa and spoke up. I want to go home for a bit. My phone is broken and I can't contact. They must be worried. Jung Roshi froze. She hadn't figured out how to tell me that my parents had passed away in a car accident 3 years ago. My body hadn't fully recovered, and the doctor had advised against upsetting me. But if she lied, she couldn't bring herself to do it either. You're still recovering. I'll go make breakfast. She could only change the subject. Fortunately, I didn't notice anything unusual. Lying on the sofa with my head tilted, watching her. You can cook? Jung Roshi, since when were you this skilled? Jung Roshi, wife? Is the wife just gone like— I scratched my head, smiled apologetically, and said sorry. I've called you that since we were— Wife? The woman was satisfied and planted a kiss on my cheek. Then, turning back repeatedly, she headed— I felt like I was about to explode on— Jung Roshi kissed— She kissed me, my goddess. I rolled around on the sofa twice in excitement before realizing something felt off. Logically, with Jung Roshi treating me so— How did it get to the point of divorce? Could I have really cheated? In the kitchen, the woman expertly prepared. She couldn't let me wait too long. She knew I had low blood and would faint if I did. Fortunately, she cooked quickly. As she picked up the tray, her phone vibrated in her pocket. She unlocked the screen. It was a message from Lee Yu-kai. The truck driver has fled. It's now classified as a hit and run. The woman glanced toward the door, saw me happily watching TV, and smiled brightly. She quickly replied, handle it. Make sure it doesn't trace. The young master must not know about. The reply came swiftly. Rest assured, the payment went through 2 third-party companies. As long as you don't say anything, the young master won't know you were behind this. You owe him. These words made Jung Roshi want to block him outright. The truck driver had been bribed by her. He was meant to cause a traffic accident. She only wanted to save her marriage with me. Even if she died, the tombstone would say Wang Chi. But she hadn't anticipated that I, who usually refused to ride, would sit beside her this time and insist she not use her phone. At first, the driver avoided her, but he unexpectedly circled back and hit the car a second time. She couldn't understand why he was so persistent. Was someone trying to kill her? What are you looking at? My voice startled her so much that her phone fell to the ground with a— The woman held her breath, nervously, her body trembling involuntarily. Did he see? He won't know, right? Wife, what's wrong? You couldn't even hold your— I said as I bent down to pick up the phone from the ground. I added, just now I saw you sneaking glances, so I wanted to scare you. I didn't expect you to scare so easily. Yes, wife's courage is way too small. Quick, touch me, I'm feeling nervous. The woman grabbed my hand and placed it on her chin. My palm was pressed against her. I could feel the rise and fall of her breathing. How is it, nervous? Her voice was soft and tender, with a hint of coquettishness. Seeing my flushed cheeks, she smiled slightly and said, just a little bit. Lift your shirt, let me check. I teased, and my mischievous hand moved. The woman slightly shifted her position, making it easier to touch at that angle. I didn't expect her to be so serious. She actually lifted her shirt. Was she lifting her shirt, or was she lifting my heart? Jung Roshi, let me warn you. You can't lift your shirt so if another man sees it, I'll be really upset. Jung Roshi raised 3 fingers, sincerely promising, I swear my body is only for my husband to see. From now on, I'll wear long sleeves even when— She put her hand down and leaned into my embrace. This was the first time I had declared my position. Honey, I will uphold women's virtue. I'll be the most obedient wife in the world. So please, please don't ever leave me, okay? I didn't quite understand the meaning of women's virtue. Jung Roshi smiled and explained, it means women should listen to their bodies are only for their husband. All men other than their husbands are bad guys. All right, I like this term. It's good that you have this. I don't know if you were like this before. I gently pushed the woman away from the aroma coming from the kitchen had already stirred my appetite. Are you done? I'll help bring the dish. You just wait and eat. You don't have to do anything. After sending, Jung Roshi thought about how I had been both and couldn't help but smile. She couldn't help but smile. Walking over with the tray in hand, it felt like happiness was lifting her. I was eating the food in front of me in big bites, almost moved to tears. My wife is not only beautiful but she's also rich and can cook. Is this a blessing from my ancestor? It's too delicious. Your cooking is so good. I can't believe I stayed for 3. Why? Because I usually work out, right? At this point, Jung Roshi's gaze lowered slowly. She put the fork in her hand aside. She answered dejectedly, You used to dislike my cooking. You said it was bad, not even as good as the school cafeteria. Even dogs wouldn't eat it. Did I really say that? Suddenly, I felt a pang of— I couldn't believe how mean I used to saying such nonsensical things to hurt her. No wonder she's always so cautious now, afraid of making me unhappy. Over these 3 years, I must have bullied her a lot. After thinking carefully, I made an important decision to pamper my woman, to make her the happiest person in the world. And I would cook for her too. Wife, I must have had taste issues in the past. The food you make is the best I've ever. As long as you like it, babe. If you like it, I'll cook for you. It makes me feel so happy. It makes me feel valuable. Her tone was gentle, carrying indescribable emotion. A subtle hint of obsession was carefully concealed by her. The emotions earlier in the morning and before finishing the meal, Zhang Roshi began to feel some emotions inside her seemed on the verge of losing control. She stood up in a panic, only to feel her mind flooded with her head started spinning wildly. A tremendous force was about to erupt. She was terrified. I had just started to accept her. She must not let me find out about. I'm going to the study to handle some. Her voice was trembling. Her eyes were red. She rushed towards the study in a flurry. The door slammed open with a bang. Before I could react to what was happening, she was already in the study. I quickly put down my chopsticks and followed her. I saw her leaning over the desk. Both hands, her whole body exuded an eerie aura. In the quiet room, the only sound was her labored breathing. At that moment, I felt as if the surrounding temperature had dropped. It wasn't until her body slightly that I noticed she was holding an IV drip. She was administering it to her. What was happening to her? The cold liquid slowly entered her body. She let out a long sigh of relief. Suddenly, she realized she might not have. She turned around in alarm.